Ta-da! That's it. Kind of finished. Let me deconstruct what's going on here. So I guess first up, I've got two cutouts for the sides of the central fuselage. 1, 2. And this central fuselage I've put a very light piece of 3.5mm carbon fibre in. There are two pieces of Velcro to hold the battery up at the front. That's going to be something like, the motor's going to go at the rear there. These are just temporarily placed. They're going to be attached later to two wing sides. Central section. It's just, as I said, it's just staged temporarily. And unlike any of the other designs I've done, these pieces here lift up the whole central section so there's enough room for the propeller to not hit the water. What I did want to show you is, so like here I've used 4mm diameter carbon fibre, and again it's only super glued in, so super glue is lighter than hot glue or epoxy that I used to use. And as well as the heat gun, if you just get your ruler and a pencil and put lines on the inside of the curve here, and you slightly break the inside of the paper, it's then much easier to make a curve. Here we are, 10 minutes later. Very pleased with that. First time I've done that technique using only super glue, not hot glue. And as I said here it is, just loosely balanced and taped together. It's the nearest I've seen so far to an idea of how the finished thing should hopefully look. So here's a quick little update on the progress so far. This is, as I often do, just staged. This horizontal tailplane, I've glued in a very thin 3.5mm piece of carbon fibre, so that's very strong and very light. I haven't glued this in yet, but I'm intending to do so soon to connect basically the whole frame together. This so here's like a front hatch to get at the battery. I'll put a magnet in there at some point. So I just want to show you a little system that I came up with earlier today. Here is a hexagonal hole for a nut, and that's only the right size for a bolt, 4mm bolt to go through, and that's only 1.5mm thick. So that's very, very thin but very strong. You're going to get your nut and work it in there. It's a very tight fit, and then you use hot glue to glue that on. That bolt goes in there extremely strongly. I actually was unable to pull that bolt out. It's a very, very light, very strong fixing system. So I'm going to use that as a system. Well, there you can see two of them. So I'm going to cover the centre wing section soon, but before I did, I wanted to show you where I'm up to. On the top here, you'll see there are little bits of hard plastic glued on, kind of as permanent washers. On the underneath, we have the servo extender leads to take signals from the receiver out to the servos. And here we have more hot glued plastic sheets for the carbon fibre to go through. That's going to go into the wings on either side. It's going to be something like this. Okay, here I am a few weeks later. I've been away on a little holiday to Greece. Can't remember even what the last vid I made was, but here you go. I 3D printed a motor mount. inserts for little receiving hex nuts. I'm using 3mm by, I think it's 10mm bolts here. Here we are the next day. A lot of work required, but very pleased with that. But my new system is to just use a magnet on one side and a nut on the other side. Magnets are harder to find. The wing is finished. Very pleased with that. There are magnetic attachers, 2 of them there and 2 of them there. There's a fairly satisfying thunk when you put it together. I'll just see if I can undo this to give you an idea. I've discovered a problem. I was looking at putting this piece in here to go underneath the rudder and noticed that they're not in line. So I'm going to have to cut off these vertical stabilizers to move them in 4 or 5mm. Well, that wasn't easy, but I've extended this forwards 2 centimeters. I've extended this forwards 2 centimeters and left that where it is, so it's a slightly sharper vertical fin. And now, if you look closely, the hole for the tail wheel is central to the vertical. Hours later, there we go. Bunch of the tail surfaces are completed. The rear part of the fuselages, pontoons, sponsons, whatever you want to call them, is now done in black, and this upper bit here, the wing support, is done in blue. Also, more importantly, I have made the inserts for servos there and there. I want to show you what I've done. Here is the piece which is going to have the axle to the wheel, the tail wheel, coming up here, and it's going to use a little can you see that there? It's going to use a little screw-in system like that to receive the axle from underneath. The rudder is going to be on like this. Here I am halfway through the attaching of the rudders and the elevator. Okay, here we are much later. Mainly good news. The rudders and the elevator are on. That's great. This is a strong clothes peg cut in half. Here is some thin plywood which has been varnished to make it waterproof. I think it's 4mm threaded rod. And basically the idea is, as this clothes peg spring gets pushed in there, the back of it touches against this nut and bolt here, the spring. So to see that in situ, it's just temporarily installed, look. Okay, here I am again some days later. I made small plywood reinforcing pieces there and there on the inside and the outside of each piece. My workshop assistant today is Bella. Hello Bella, puss puss. So the bottoms of the floats are pretty much finished. Here are the wheel assemblies, tiny bit of WD-40 on the wheels, a tiny bit of thread lock on these here. They'll go in there, but I'll probably put the iron-on covering first. And just to show you, I made these, the usual plastic that I always use from like folders. And I cut tabs that I was able to heat with a lighter and just carefully bend them up, and they're going to go like that. Just want to show you the shocking difference between a nicely finished side and the unfinished side. And this is very nearly finished. This is a theoretical mode 2, where the 2 outer removable wings are lower down to the ground or the water in the interests of wing and ground effect flying or wing and surface effect flying. Ta-da! That's it. Kind of finished. And for boat and car mode, the wings can temporarily stash on the side like that. I kept having to put a bit of weight on the nose to balance it. So I've just cut through that there. It was a difficult decision to make, and I'm going to extend that forwards some amount. There we go. An hour or so later, you would barely know that fuselage was ever extended. One final attempt to get this craft to go on step. I've topped the floats off, completely topped them off. I'm going to boost the height up by, I believe it's 3 centimetres. I'm going to stick that on there, make another piece for there. Here I am, halfway through the, let's face it, the final modification. Hi there. Here we go with the first ever test of flying car boat attempt number 6. I think this is a bit of a small pool to actually show you much turning, but let's see if it floats. I believe it will. Here we go. Well, that's a good sign. I'm just going to go and give it a blast of speed. Its first ever go. Ready, set. Let's see how it goes on a bit of a turn. Here we go with the right hand turn. That's quite good. So here are the rear rudders. They're about to come off, and at the moment that's in float mode, and that's about to change. And we are converted over now to car mode. So there we go, it works as a boat. Now I confess it didn't get up on step in the water, so it needs either more lightness or a wider float. Next version. I'm going to now try this on a cobbled path just to make life difficult. I'll try to do a turn there and drive back. Let's see. Here we go, boat mode activated. On your marks, get set, go. There we go, that's very controllable, works very, very well in car mode. Very happy with that. Many thanks to my lovely wifey Olga for videoing. Thanks, love.
No worries, love.
Thanks. Next test will be on the flying fields in a few weeks. Oh! Hola!